Welcome to the Sacred Window podcast. Here, we look closely at the intersections of the postpartum window, the Ayurvedic perspective on health and healing, and the universal mother principles that are the keys to giving and receiving effective care. Hello, I'm Christine Devlin Eck. I'll be taking you through interviews with professionals who are making a profound difference in the lives of their clients, conversations with individuals brave enough to share their stories of vulnerability as a way to lift up others, and my own journey through birth, parenting, caregiving, and building a conscious business. We are here to honor the sacred windows, the profound transitions in life that give it all meaning. Welcome to the conversation.
And I will never be the same again.
Hello, everyone. I'm very happy to be doing another postpartum doula case study. And this time, I'm welcoming Jerica Beckman. Jerica and I met one another several years ago through a class we taught at the Yoga Veda Institute. And Jerica was really drawn towards postpartum care, women's health. And so she came and did our certification. Jerica's based in White Salmon, Washington. Her business is Ananda Auntie, but you can find her on Instagram with Auntie Jerica. Jerica also attended our in-person training, so I like knew that you were so special, and I had this connection with you through our like online mentoring and things like that. But I really was so grateful that you were able to come to our in-person training, Jerica, because um, there's just such like magic and there's such integration that happens, but there's also such like a deepening of community that happens there. And so I just feel like for all of us, it's like a pivotal moment of like understanding a bit more about what we want our practice to look like through how we feed off each other. Um, but I'm going to stop talking, but I just really admire you and your doula practice. And thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to see what comes forward in this conversation.
Yeah. Well, as I told you before, it's really important and valuable to be able to learn from other people who are maybe a few steps further down the path than we are. And as I like just said before we hit record, like every step of our journey is sacred just where we are. We don't have to try to like rush to get anywhere. We can just embody where we are. But when we're supported through understanding how and learning from others about what could support us, it's just a very different feel than when we're not sure, we're feeling insecure, we don't really have a clear idea about what is the best way to set up our business. Or, I mean, it could be towards anything, whether it's the caregiving process or the business piece of it. Um, but what I've really loved, and I've gotten the opportunity to be kind of on an intimate view of your journey as a postpartum doula. And so you really came to mind when we did this. And I guess I'm just going to start out about like, when you were sort of first start, like you were kind of ending your education piece and kind of ready to start setting the things up. What was something that was difficult and what was something that was easy?
Yeah, I think this is something that through our mentorship really helped me discover and kind of detangle the pieces of what was difficult. And at first, I had never started my own business. I had my own farm, but because farming feels so analog and it didn't seem like I needed so much of an online presence, I just needed to show up at markets. It felt really daunting to me to have all the things that I thought I needed, right? Like in the beginning, I was like, I need a website and I need business cards and I need a platform and I need social. And while I was able to accomplish all of those things, it took a lot slower than I thought. And I think with your reassurance and me kind of understanding that the pace takes as long as it does and really accepting that, it gave me a little bit more leniency towards myself to be like, okay, everything is happening at the rate that it needs to. But I would say that the website specifically was the hardest part for me. I could have hired someone to do it, but I A wanted to learn and B couldn't afford it. So it was like, how will I do that? Looking back on it now, I get probably my website isn't the most important piece of my business, but I did pour a lot of like love into it, and I feel better for it today for having built it. And a lot of people enjoy my website, which feels good. But that was probably the most daunting, was the technological piece. I know some people are more technologically savvy than I might be, so like bless them. But for me, it was a little bit more difficult.
I
And
I felt the same way, Jerica, and I also feel like to just pop in super quick.
mhm.
It was sort of like really empowering once I finished building my first website. I was like, oh wow, like I actually learned how to do that. And now I can continue to do this because I have the skill. So hard things are kind of like good. It's good to do hard.
Totally. It's good to be challenged and it's good to not have everything figured out. And I think that the reason I'm even studying Ayurveda to begin with is because I want to be a forever student. And there's not anything you could like, there's no amount of this like ancient wisdom and lineage that you can know quickly. It really develops over time. And I think like if I were to give any advice to someone who's started practicing, that it all reveals itself in time, right? You might not have a website yet, or you might not have the body work yet. And it comes with time and building confidence and building trust in yourself as well. And now that I've been doing it for a few years, in hindsight is like definitely 2020. I can see much clearer now that, everything does reveal itself in time, and it's a great life lesson. And it's a good lesson for, stepping into a new role, into a new career, into a new job,
And
into
it's something like so beautiful that that practice of avoiding the temptation for instant gratification or like just assuming that something is too hard. I think we've talked about this too, is that like concept of looking at what feels sticky or intimidating and like leaning in a little closer. And then all of a sudden, it doesn't act like when we actually look and start getting our hands into it, we're like, oh, that's not actually as scary as I thought it was. And
or
and
that.
also like that piece about like the postpartum window, the whole idea is we're going slow and we're honoring what is. So as care providers, it's not our job to like separate ourselves from what is and what's happening and what pace it is that our path is meant to go on. So it's a good reminder for so many things.
Definitely. I'll just circle around too. You asked me some things that were easier as well, or maybe just came a little bit more flow. I think that cooking, you helped me do this too. In the very beginning, you asked the question, like, well, what part are you most comfortable in? Because I wasn't sure where to start and what to offer, knowing that I had trained in all of these things and wanting to give them all, right? Like, I want to give every single facet of the care program, but I just wasn't ready yet. Even just like within my own heart, I had a lot of imposter syndrome and a little bit of doubt. And you were like, well, what brings you confidence? And I said, oh, well, cooking. Like that's the part that comes natural to me. That's the part that is really in like alive in my heart, like nutrition. And I think that's why I fell in love with Ayurveda to begin with, is eating with the seasons and eating in relation to your own dosha and finding out how to find balance within diet and especially lifestyle. But so it was like, okay, well, how do I lead into that? My first client, I only cooked for them. I delivered food to their door. I barely went in their house. It was like my sister-in-law, so I was really blessed to have to practice on someone who I loved. And I barely knew what I was doing. I was like, I just gave her so much food. I was like, here's all this food. And she would text me every night at like 3 in the morning. She'd be like, I just woke up for a feeding and I feel so nourished. There's like so much bounty here. And I was like, don't pay me a thing. Right. I was like, I just want to practice. And she ended up like giving me money. And I was like, please don't. And I accepted it because that was the way that she could reciprocate her love. And I did that. And that gave me the confidence to step into that more. My next client was also just food. I prepped her 2 weeks of food. We stashed it all in the freezer because that was her request. And I was like, okay, I have something here. And then with her feedback, it gave me a little bit more. So it was like these little building blocks of trust that I needed along the way to have. And it is a theory, like it's just where I'm at in life too, is sometimes I do need some external validation and I can like own up to that, especially when practicing a new business. And I needed it and I received it, and that gave me the confidence to keep moving forward.
You said something, I think it was at one of our community circles recently about how when you first started working with people, you asked them to like tell me more about like was it like a recommendation or you it was like your first client kind of led to your second that led to your third. And I loved this piece so much and I just want others to hear about it.
Yeah, so it's fun to like walk down this like memory path. My first client, yeah, was my sister-in-law. So it felt like, like nothing, like this is the best person I could be practicing on, like nothing but love and no judgment there. And then my second client was a dear friend. And so I also felt like really safe in that. And then my third client was a local acupuncturist. And I reached out to her. I knew she was pregnant and she had submitted like a request to know more information about me. And I had received a few treatments from her in the past, and she works a lot like with both prenatal and postnatal. So I was like, oh, what a wonderful client to have. And I offered her a discount. So I was like, I know that you are facilitating and working with so many people in my same field. If I give you a discount for some of my services, um could you help refer or like leave me feedback and leave. And I asked my first two clients as well, is like, I'm just doing this for a review and a testimonial for my website. I don't even need your money. I just need words of recognition and so other people can find me. So it was really just an exchange at first that wasn't as career oriented. It was kind of like you scratch my back, I scratch yours, and everyone gets nourished along the way. Or maybe I make you a meal, you make me one, for a better analogy. Um, but then that acupuncturist was like, yes, absolutely. I'll take some food and maybe a closing of the bone ceremony. And I was like, okay, great. She ended up having an emergency C-section. It was actually quite, and then she had the paralytic, like where her intestines stopped working and her incision scar got infected and she had to go. And then she had a wound vac that she was carrying around. It was one of the more challenging clients that I'd had, and she needed so much more help than initially thought. So I ended up going in there with like, having this like awesome deal for her and like just doing a few little food items. And then I was there 3 times a week for a month and a half, giving them night support, giving Abhyanga and getting her to a restful state because she was in the hospital for almost 2 weeks. It was a really intense case, and it was really wonderful for us to establish this connection, referral or not, like the fact that we even made that connection and I could aid her in that healing and in that really challenging time just felt like, okay, now I'm ready for anything. And
Yeah.
those are the things that like little by little I was surprised at. Every client has a different challenge, a different success, a different family dynamic, a different partner dynamic. So it's so interesting to go in with some of those basic mother principles of flexibility, compassion, non-judgment, and greet every family where they're at, because birth is a journey and you never know what will be on the other side.
Right. And I love how, with your, I mean, you have like a really strong Ayurvedic background. And, on top of what we're talking about in our program, but it's like when you have that system as your framework, people can come in just exactly where they are. And then we have the tools and with the Universal Mother principles, yeah, to just sort of trust that that foundation is within us and know that whatever we approach with whatever has happened, whatever the birth, whatever the circumstances are of this family, we have the toolkit within that foundation piece. Because yeah, it's so unexpected. You came in expecting to do one thing, and then you ended up doing something that looked really different. And so, once she kind of emerged from her sacred window, how did this you know, arrangement that you had made with, your first three clients, how did that turn into a more like a referred experience?
Yeah, absolutely. It changed into a more referred experience just through her direct referrals, but even just like what I have found is it isn't even really it doesn't have to be a professional either. Like, it doesn't have to be someone practicing in a certain field. It really is mother to mother or birther to birther. It is this just connecting piece of, did they resonate with it? Yes. If so, I think when the next friend is pregnant, they're always like, "Oh, who did you have? Who is your birth doula? Who do postpartum doula? What's that? I didn't know I needed that. Do I need that?" And they're like, "Yes, you need that." And it's like it feels so validating and it feels so good that someone feels so nourished and so loved after your visit that they want to tell people about it. And I do live in a small community that's very interconnected, and I do feel like it's very like health conscious and like very there's a lot of alternative medicines and holistic medicines that can survive here, and like therapists in the same region. And I don't know if that's true for everywhere, but I just feel as if everyone is so interconnected and walking a similar path where they are more aware of their health. And postpartum care is coming into awareness. It's really becoming a little bit more known, where just a few years ago, someone might have never even heard of it. So even just me existing in my community, people don't even have to book me, but the seed is still being planted, and that's one of my favorite parts is asking what I even do. And then they go home and they tell someone what I do, and they have a pregnant friend. It doesn't even have to be someone who's worked with me, it could be someone who's just met me. And I think that's lovely. And I love to say that also my job wasn't always needed. Like I think that's why it feels new is as we move away from our nuclear families and we have, and sometimes our nuclear families are challenging and they don't feel as supportive, and we get to choose our own families and we move away from home. We move so much more than we ever have before. And now my job is, now it's necessary. Now it's like more important to come into the home where previously we had our villages and we had our aunties and our grandmas and our cousins and our, neighbors, and we felt taken care of, but it's different now.
How are you sharing your gifts and passion for caregiving with others? In a world where education and awareness around the postpartum window is lacking or missing from our modern systems, we have a profound opportunity to shift that paradigm. You may be a few simple offerings away from making a truly impactful difference in the lives of mothers and families in your community. We are here to support your journey in the ways that work best for you. Schedule a conscious care strategy session to meet one on one with me, and let's identify the right next step for you to begin a path of conscious care for new families that fits your life and your needs. Visit www.sacredwindowstudies.com/strategy-session to schedule a time that works best for you. That's www.sacredwindowstudies.com/strategy-session. It's such a privilege, it feels
Mhm.
like, to be in the spaces where people are at their most vulnerable. Um, So now you're like, you're a few years in, you're like, cruising and like now sort of looking at like past that first year where you were getting things set up, you were just starting to get yourself out there.
Mhm.
What has become easier and what is like really fueling your business at this point?
Mm, that's a good question. I think one of the easiest things for me, and which felt like the hardest to begin with, was trust.
Mm.
And when I share my story, sometimes, or even just like how my workflow goes, people always ask, like, is that enough clients? Don't you need to book more? Where are you at? And I'm like, it's wild. Like, I just had a client finish up last week was her last visit. I visited her twice a week for 6 weeks. And I had another birth that like she wasn't due for another 5 days. She gave birth like the very next day that I was finished with the client. And then boom, I had another client. It's like some people come late, some people like give birth earlier. You never know where it is. And it feels daunting when there are so many unknowns. But I will tell you that like the timing for me has been impeccable, and just trusting that my needs will always be met. And if I don't have a client for a little bit, I say, you know what? Why don't I just rest? What does that look like? And it's just like trusting that you can, and then I can fill my cup for when the next client does arrive. Because sometimes it can be a week, sometimes it can be a month. You never know, like in the way that things add. And then if I'm like, oh my gosh, I have a month, someone usually comes through the woodworks and is like, hi, I didn't know I needed you. And I know we haven't met yet, but are you open to chatting? And I'm like, absolutely. They're like, I just gave birth, and I'm like, let's chat. So it's wild, to really just like let my guard down and trust that everything's going to work out in amazing ways.
Mm, that's so beautiful. It's such a huge piece of it too, because I also think that when we're worried, when we're putting that stress into the picture, that impacts our experience 100%. And it impacts the way that energy is flowing in our business, whether people want to believe it or not. How
And it is
we
real.
approach it, it's real. It's
Yes.
real. Ayurveda will tell you, like it's too. But there's a real like coming into relationship with ourself and how we want to experience life. I think that's for me the most powerful piece of this type of work is that I can't leave myself out of the equation. And those periods of rest are just as important as the periods of working. And so, in order to keep that sustainability piece, we've got to have that. Not only that, but like that's like those periods of rest, like that's where you can come in and be like, oh, try out this new recipe or this new, or maybe like take this little herbal course, or maybe like, you know, create like a cool thing on the back end of your business that you have thought about but haven't had time to do. Those are the spaces to do that.
Yes, because there's some things that like become inspiring, or, a client asks a question and you're like, I've never thought about that. Let me add that into my contract, into my website, into these little things. There's so many different facets of information that are out there about us. So it's interesting when a client like brings up something new that you haven't thought about and you're like, yeah, I need to amend that. That's a great, thank you for bringing that into my awareness. So there is always a back end thing to deal with, and a new program to try out and recipes to test. And I think that's the part that keeps me going is I love a good dynamic job. I don't want to do the same thing every day. And I think that's why postpartum doula work really, really works well for my personality type too.
Yeah. How has your service, like the services that you offer in your practice, how did you grow those? Like, you started out with really focusing on cooking, what you were confident with, and then how did it develop? Like, when did you start doing body work? How did that all come into play?
Yeah. It came into play. I felt I was offering mostly cooking services and like in-home care without a lot of body work. I was giving like foot baths and rubs and like hand massage, little scalp rub, but I wasn't comfortable yet with full body, even though through my Ayurvedic practitionership and I learned, but all of my learning has been online. And I'm such a tangible person that I knew the strokes, I knew the moves. We practiced in some of our like projects right through your program. And I just felt like I really needed hands-on experience before I really put it out into the world. And that was just where I was at. And so when I took your retreat in July, it was, gosh, was that July of last year? Was it 24?
Yeah. Yeah.
July of 24, I really felt like after that, I was like, oh, body work, easy. And now I've been doing that for over a year. And it's one of my favorite parts. So it was like incorporating little by little and then realizing through both like Ayurvedic principles and through postpartum principles, like how important touch is.
Yeah.
And how important it is also like when I give clients like say breast massage and it's like they're like, oh wow, I've never been touched with my breasts that feel like it's either not the baby who needs something or even sexually. And it just how much healing can come from being touched with care that doesn't have anything, that doesn't have any requests or needs from that body. So it's just like when I started to realize that, and then when I got the hands on experience, I just felt so much more prepared and confident and ready to put that into the world. So when I came back, I like love practicing on people for free, right? Like it's the way to do it to get feedback that doesn't feel so pertinent, right? It's not like your job is hanging on this. It's really just saying like, hey, I'm new. I'm practicing. I had a friend who does red light therapy. She was new in her business and she's like, I want to show you what I offer because she wants to offer it to postpartum people as well. And I was like, I'd love to see that. Let me give you an Abhyanga in exchange. So I gave her oil application and she gave me red light. We were both just like afterwards, like A, nourished, B, in connection, and like C, like we were just now we can refer each other out. And it just like it feels good to also give recommendations based on something you've experienced as well. Because you can say like, yes, I love this person and I love this personality, but you might not know what their work actually feels like. So I think that's where the exchange is really helpful too, to like feel that energy and feel the person who's giving, really understand where they're coming from. So again, it was like that little by little receiving the feedback, receiving the confidence. And now I feel like I can't learn enough about body work. I want to know everything there is. I just went to another recent intensive. I have a friend who also attends the Ayurvedic Institute, and she gave me like a whole. Now we just do Shirodhara together. So now I'm obsessed with Shirodhara. I've been giving it to clients. I've been giving it to my family members and whoever wants to receive it. I even gave a few out to like the community offering people who like heard about me, and I go to their homes, and it's a lot of schlepping, but it's really lovely. I've seen the vitality and life that returns to people's like skin, like the color and just like the flush and just like their vata is so reduced, right? They look so calm. That is the medicine for me as a practitioner to be like, wow, I can't believe I just made you feel that way. That's amazing.
It is. And I have to say, like on a business level, that word of mouth, and maybe you can confirm this is our most, really the most meaningful advertising and marketing that we can have. And to offer, what, like an hour and a half of your time and like what, a half a cup of oil, whatever. Like this is the best investment by giving people the opportunity to experience it. And they feel so grateful. Like we've given them something from our heart and they 100% will pass it on, especially if we don't keep it inside and we say, please tell people, please, I want to do this for new moms. I want people to feel healed. I want to contribute in this way. And people, that is some of the best investment that we can make in marketing is to show other people what it's like, particularly because it is an emerging field. Not everybody, it's not standard that people know. what Ayurveda is, let alone Ayurvedic postpartum care, but we know what a treasure it is. We know that it works. So I love that you've really harnessed that piece of marketing investment. It's seems to have really worked.
It has, yeah. And what's really beautiful too is there's like a little Ayurvedic clinic here in town that opened up within the last year. And I just go in there and sometimes I hang out and chat with the ladies and they resource me all the time. You know, it really is formulating connection. And you're like that can feel hard to ask for feedback and put yourself out there when you're new at something. I think it's hard to be new and unfamiliar, and I think the only remedy for that is time and practice. And looking back on that, it felt really just daunting and overwhelming. But what I can say and what I can recommend is just give it time. I guess that's just like a great life analogy. But yeah, it's true.
Looking back, you know, at a younger version of yourself who's, navigating the beginnings of this path, is there anything else that you would tell yourself?
Mm, I would say so many things. That it's okay to not have it all figured out right away. I thought that I think I mentioned that previously, that I just needed to do everything at once. And that's no way to go through life. And I think that's something that our mentorship helped us out with a lot. Our mentorship was like mostly like business chat, but like it was also so much of what felt like therapy that you're like, no, you got this. Like it's just like talking me down from a ledge. That was because I am my own hardest critic, and it's really hard for me to put work out there that doesn't feel complete or perfect. And I realized that nobody's perfect and nobody cares about like the little things and the little details. Like they just want the full picture. They don't need the minute, it's just put it out there imperfectly and see what happens. You can always come back, you can always edit, you can always refresh. And just to have something out there to say, here I am, and this is how you can find me, whether it's a website, social media, a flyer in town, it's just like that's the hardest part is just believing that you can take up the space to be put out there, at least for me.
You find that there was a practice that helped you navigate that?
It was mostly through external validation and then trusting that those words were true. It was really, I think of like many practices just through like my dinacharya as well, is just sitting with myself and telling myself that I can do it, as like a part of like a personal mantra. There was like lots to Ganesh as well. Like that's like a lot of help in like both removing the obstacles and then a little bit of Shiva to help destroy, anything that was in the path. Like I really needed a little bit of hand holding through the first few months. And it was just stepping into a totally new version of myself. And who I am today is so drastically different than who I was then. And I can say that the growth happens internally and in your community as you just keep putting one foot in front of the other. And like, even if you trip, you know, you're still
Mm,
gonna like, you're still on the path.
it's so beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I just see um, from the outside, from my perspective, I always saw that ability to sort of self-talk and connect with yourself to help. Like that was this like you had your own inner guide that was really taking you through. And I know that we can have that and we can still feel like we don't know what's going on. Uh,
Totally.
but I knew that you know what was going on. On some level, I knew that you knew and that you were
Thank
going to
you.
hear. Well, I I hope that people who are listening, I hope that you will look at Jerica's online presence. Just know that she is in the world doing this, and as everybody is in this generous community, we're here for each other. We support each other. We connect with each other. If you are curious about this work or trying to like break through to a different space in this work, come to the monthly community circles. If you are brand new and looking, we do have the Sacred Journey course, which is a great place to start. It'll like give you the foundational pieces of what is Ayurvedic postpartum care, what is this body work, what is this food nutrition piece, and you will become as hooked as we are.
Addicting.
But Jerica, just thank you for everything that you do in your community, but also in the wider world. And it's such a privilege to know you and to be connected with you. And thank you for your graciousness of sharing today.
Absolutely. It's my pleasure to be here and share the good word of postpartum care. And without you, it wouldn't be possible. So, so much gratitude towards you and the other teachers. And I feel very honored and blessed to be in this space.
Thank you so much.
Shanti, Shanti.
The Center for Sacred Window Studies has been training postpartum care providers, professionals who work with new families, and individuals passionate about postpartum care since 2018. We regularly host live free events alongside our online and in-person training and certification programs. Hop on our newsletter list to get direct access to all of our events and community support gatherings. Our mission is not only in training conscious postpartum care providers, but in fostering a robust, informed, and thriving community of postpartum professionals. Once you step inside, you're family forever. Visit www.sacredwindowstudies.com to add your email to our newsletter list. You can support our work by subscribing to the Sacred Window podcast and sharing with someone you know who would love it. Thanks for being here and participating in the culture-wide shift that recognizes the need for and the importance of conscious postpartum care.